In the endless monotony of my daily life, the extraordinary seemed like a fantasy, a fragment of daydreams amidst the drone of my all-too-predictable existence. My name is Ethan. I'm a man of no particular importance, with a life as dull as the overcast skies of my hometown. Each day blended into the next, a seamless tapestry of mediocrity. That was until that peculiar Thursday evening when the fabric of my reality began to unravel. I had just returned from another day at the office, the kind where the highlight is a slightly less stale cup of coffee. As I sifted through the usual assortment of bills and junk mail, a peculiar envelope caught my eye. Unlike the rest, it bore no return address, only an intricate emblem of an eye, cradled within a nest of shadows, embossed on the front. Inside, a single card with a few cryptic words written in an elegant, almost ancient script. Your presence is requested at the Society of Shadows. Enlightenment awaits those who dare to seek it. Below, an address and a time were all that guided me to the first step down a path from which there was no return. Under the cloak of night, the mansion loomed like a spectre from forgotten tales, its silhouette a stark contrast against the moonlit sky. The invitation weighed heavily in my pocket as I approached, a mix of trepidation and curiosity, propelling me forward. The door creaked open before my hand even grazed the knocker, revealing a dimly lit foyer, and a gathering of individuals whose eyes sparkled with the same mix of fear and anticipation I felt. A figure detached from the shadows, their features obscured by the dim light, and greeted me with a voice as smooth as silk, yet carrying an undercurrent of something unplaceable. "Welcome, Ethan, to the Society of Shadows," they intoned, gesturing grandly to the assembly. "Here, we seek the truths hidden in the dark, the knowledge veiled from the uninitiated. Will you join us in our quest?" As the door shut behind me, sealing my exit as if it never existed, I realized I had stepped into a world far removed from the mundane existence I so desperately wished to escape. This was the inciting incident that thrust me into the heart of the Society of Shadows, unknowingly setting the stage for the harrowing events that would unfold. As the weeks unfolded, my life became a delicate balance between the mundane and the mysterious. By day, I continued my unremarkable existence, but by night, I delved deeper into the enigmatic world of the Society of Shadows. Each meeting unraveled another layer of the Society's complex tapestry, weaving rituals and tests that challenged not just my physical limits, but the very foundations of my morality. The Society's gatherings were held in various hidden chambers of the mansion, each more peculiar than the last. One room was shrouded in complete darkness, save for a singular beam of light that illuminated an ancient tome on a pedestal. We were asked to decipher cryptic texts, their meanings obscured by time and the intentional complexity of their authors. Another test had us navigate a labyrinthine set of corridors, the walls adorned with unsettling, esoteric symbols that seemed to shift and dance in the flickering torchlight. The members of the Society, whom I had started to consider my peers, were a diverse assembly bound by a common pursuit of knowledge. Yet, as I grew closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that beneath their welcoming facades lay secrets far darker than the rituals we performed. Whispers filled the air, hinting at a truth far more profound and disturbing than any of us dared to admit. One evening, after a particularly disorienting ritual that left me questioning the very nature of reality, I stumbled upon a door that I had never noticed before. It was as if the mansion itself was alive, revealing its secrets to me piece by piece. The door led to a vast library, its shelves laden with books so ancient, their pages whispered with age. The air was thick with the scent of musty paper and old leather, a stark reminder of the knowledge that had been accumulated and hidden away in this sanctum. As I traced my fingers over the spines of the books, I felt a chill that had little to do with the temperature of the room. These were not merely books, they were vessels of forbidden knowledge, their contents veiled in allegories and coded languages that spoke of rituals and powers that mankind was never meant to wield. It was here, among these tomes of eldritch lore, that I began to understand the true nature of the Society of Shadows. It was not enlightenment they sought, but control, dominion over the unseen forces that roiled just beneath the surface of our reality. My resolve to uncover the Society's secrets grew, fueled by a mixture of dread and an insatiable thirst for knowledge. I spent countless nights poring over the texts, each revelation more unnerving than the last. I learned of rituals that promised to peel back the veil of reality, to grant visions of worlds beyond our own, inhabited by beings of unfathomable power and malevolence. The Society's ultimate goal, it seemed, was to harness these forces, to bend the fabric of reality to their will. As my understanding deepened, so too did my sense of isolation. My once ordinary life felt like a distant memory, a flimsy facade that I could no longer maintain. I began to see the world around me in a different light, noticing patterns and symbols that had once been invisible to me. It was as if I had been granted a new set of eyes, ones that could see the shadows that lurked in every corner, the hidden truths that lay just beyond the reach of the uninitiated. But with this newfound sight came a creeping sense of paranoia. I could feel eyes on me at all times, watching, waiting. The other members of the society, whom I had once viewed as allies in our shared quest, now seemed like potential threats, their smiles a little too eager, their gazes a little too penetrating. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being tested, judged for some unfathomable purpose. My fears were confirmed one fateful night when I was summoned to the mansion for an impromptu gathering. The air was charged with a palpable tension, the kind that precedes a storm. The members were assembled in a circle, their faces shrouded in shadow, as the leader of the society stepped forward. In his hands, he held an ancient artifact, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to writhe and twist in the dim light. He spoke of a ritual, one that had been foretold in the ancient texts, a ceremony that would grant us unparalleled power and insight. But as he described the ritual in hushed tones, a sense of dread settled in my stomach. The price of this power was not something to be paid in mere physical or mental exertion. It demanded a sacrifice, one that would irrevocably alter the course of my life and the lives of those involved. As the details of the ritual were laid bare, I felt the last remnants of my resolve crumble. This was not the pursuit of knowledge I had envisioned when I joined the Society of Shadows. This was a descent into madness, a path that led not to enlightenment, but to darkness and despair. I stood on the precipice, torn between my hunger for understanding and the moral compass that, despite everything, still pointed true north. In that moment, I realized the true nature of the society. It was not a haven for seekers of knowledge, but a trap, one that lured in the curious and the desperate with promises of power and purpose. And I, like so many before me, had walked willingly into its jaws. As the preparations for the ritual began, I knew I had to make a choice. I could succumb to the allure of the unknown, sacrificing everything I held dear for a glimpse of the forbidden. Or I could turn away, renounce the society and its dark ambitions, and try to reclaim the life I had so willingly forsaken. The decision weighed heavily on me, a burden that threatened to crush my spirit. But deep down, I knew there was only one path I could take. I had to reject the society and its twisted vision, to break free from the shadows that sought to envelop me. With a heart heavy with regret and a mind clouded with fear, I made my choice. I would not be a pawn in the society's game, a mere instrument of their will. I would reclaim my life, my freedom, and my sanity, even if it meant fleeing from the only place that had felt like home in this strange, new world. And so, under the cover of darkness, I prepared to make my escape, to leave behind the Society of Shadows and its malevolent grasp. But as I made my way through the mansion's winding corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over, that the society would not let me go so easily. With each step, the shadows seemed to grow longer, the whispers louder, as if the very fabric of the mansion was conspiring to keep me within its walls. But I pressed on, driven by a desperate hope that I could still find a way out, that I could escape the darkness that threatened to consume me. As I reached the main hall, the doors swung open with a creak that echoed through the empty space. The night air was cool on my skin, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere of the mansion. I took a deep breath, savoring the fleeting sense of freedom, before stepping out into the darkness, unsure of what the future held, but determined to face it on my own terms. But even as I made my way down the winding path that led away from the mansion, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched. The sense of paranoia that had taken root in my mind during my time with the Society of Shadows seemed to grow with each step I took, casting long shadows across my thoughts. It was as if the Society's eyes were everywhere, hidden in the darkness that stretched out around me, silent witnesses to my desperate flight. The further I got from the mansion, the more the landscape seemed to warp and twist around me. Familiar paths became unfamiliar, and the night seemed to close in, a tangible presence that sought to disorient and confuse. My heart pounded in my chest, a frenzied rhythm that mirrored the chaotic swirl of thoughts in my mind. Fear and doubt clouded my judgment, making me second-guess each turn, each decision. I stumbled through the dark, my only guide the faint light of the moon that broke through the canopy above. The sounds of the night were amplified in my heightened state of alertness, every rustle and snap a potential threat. I was no longer just fleeing from the society. I was running from the shadows within, the parts of myself that had been awakened and twisted by the rituals and the dark knowledge I had been exposed to. As the night wore on, exhaustion began to take its toll. My limbs felt heavy, each step an effort that sapped the remaining strength from my body. But the fear of being recaptured, of being dragged back to the mansion and the society's clutches, propelled me forward. I knew I couldn't stop, couldn't rest, not until I was sure I was beyond their reach. Eventually, the first light of dawn began to seep through the trees, casting the world in a grey half-light. That made everything seem even more surreal. The boundary between night and day blurred, mirroring the confusion and turmoil in my mind. It was in this in-between state that I finally emerged from the woods, my body aching and my spirit nearly broken. I found myself on the outskirts of town, the familiar sights and sounds a stark contrast to the nightmarish world I had left behind. The early morning streets were empty, the world still asleep, unaware of the darkness that lurked at its edges. I felt like a ghost, an echo of the person I had been before my entanglement with the Society of Shadows. As I made my way through the silent town, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was not the end, that the Society would not let me go so easily. I was a loose end, a threat to their secrecy and their plans. The thought of being hunted, of always looking over my shoulder, was almost as terrifying as the rituals and the dark knowledge I had been exposed to. But despite the fear, despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead, I knew I had made the right decision. I had chosen my humanity over the allure of the forbidden, my integrity over the promise of power. It was a small victory, perhaps, in the grand scheme of things, but it was mine. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting the world in a new light, I realized that my journey was far from over. I had escaped the Society of Shadows, but the scars they had left on my mind and soul would not heal so easily. I was changed, irrevocably altered by my experiences, and I knew that the road to recovery would be long and fraught with challenges. But in that moment, with the dawn breaking around me, I felt a glimmer of hope. I had faced the darkness and emerged on the other side, battered but not broken. And as I took those first steps into the light of a new day, I knew that I had the strength to face whatever lay ahead, to rebuild my life from the ashes of the old. The Society of Shadows might still be out there, lurking in the corners of the world, but I was free. Free from their grasp, free to choose my own path, and free to confront the darkness within and without. It was not an easy freedom, not a simple victory, but it was mine, and I would hold onto it with all the strength I had left. As I walked away from the woods and the shadows they contained, I made a silent vow to myself. I would not let the Society define me, would not let the fear and paranoia they had instilled in me take root and grow. I would face the world on my own terms, armed with the knowledge of what I had endured and survived. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and dangers I could not yet foresee. But I was ready to face it, ready to reclaim my life and my identity from the shadows that had sought to consume me. The Society of Shadows was behind me now, a dark chapter in my life that I would close and lock away, a reminder of the depths to which humanity could sink in its quest for power and knowledge. And as I stepped into the light of the new day, I knew that no matter what the future held, I would face it head-on with courage and determination. For I was no longer a pawn in the Society's game, no longer a victim of the shadows. I was Ethan, a man who had walked through the darkness and emerged into the light, ready to start anew. In the aftermath of my defiance, life became a solitary journey through shadows, always vigilant, always moving. The Society of Shadows remained a lurking presence, a dark whisper on the edge of my reality. Yet, in this newfound solitude, I found a semblance of peace. My actions had irrevocably altered my path, but they had also granted me a clarity of purpose. The Society's emblems, once symbols of belonging, now served as reminders of the strength found in resistance. As I navigated this world alone, the knowledge that I had chosen integrity over darkness was my guiding light, a beacon in the endless night.